Hello everyone, welcome to the NinjaTrader webinar room. My name is Chelsea Bell. I'm with the Ninja Script representatives here in our Denver, Colorado office. If you're able to hear my voice and you're able to see the slideshow in the room, please enter a Y into the room for me now. Thank you very much. Sounds like I'm coming through loud and clear. Okay, welcome to the Strategy Wizard webinar event. I do want to have a quick disclaimer. It is important to understand there are substantial risks in trading community futures contracts. You should carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you. This will depend on your specific circumstance and financial resources. It is possible to lose all of the funds deposited with your broker, and you can incur losses beyond these amounts. Please inquire at brokerage support at ninjatrader.com for more information, or if you'd like to get a copy of the CFTC full risk disclosure. Also, do keep in mind, these training webinars are not a solicitation nor a recommendation, but simply educational in nature. Okay, one moment, I'm gonna grab just entered an NT services box down at the bottom there. So there's several links down there where you can get download, you can find out about leasing options. With our wizard today, we're gonna be learning the basics of strategy creation using the Strategy Wizard. I wanna mention that NinjaTrader is a free application for advanced charting, market analytics, automated strategy development, and trade simulation. We do charge for our product if and when you decide to trade live through. I'm going to turn my microphone up just a little bit. How's that sounding for everyone? Thank you. All right. So we do charge for our product if you decide to trade live on the NinjaTrader platform. And if you want to learn more about that, just take a look at the links that I've added in the yellow display box below. Now, over the next few weeks, we are going to be launching all of our new education events. We have not completed these, and we could really use your help with this. So at the end of the event, I've added a survey. It's just a very quick survey that you can tell us about how we're doing and how we can improve, and we do look forward to your feedback. To get started, I'm going to click Tools and then New Ninja Script and then Strategy. This is going to open up the Strategy Wizard. So that was Tools, New Ninja Script, Strategy. So this is the Strategy Wizard. One moment. Okay. I'm on the desktop sharing section. So you should, at this point, see my new Strategy Wizard. If you're not able to see it, go ahead and make a mention in the room, but I'll just go ahead and continue on like it's there. In the bottom left, we see the Help button. This just opens up the Help guide to the Strategy Wizard. So it's a quick way to find information about the different screens here or the condition builder. The next button is the View Code button. When I click this, it shows me the code that the Strategy Wizard has generated. However, I am not able to modify this. It is currently locked for editing. So as I try and type here, I get no text that appears. The next button is the Unlock Code button. This button unlocks the code. It also opens the code in the the Ninja Script editor, but it unlocks the code so that you are able to manually code in this. Once you have clicked the Unlock Code button, you will not be able to use the Strategy Wizard to modify that script anymore. So do keep that in mind. Once Unlock Code has been clicked, you can no longer use that strategy to use the Strategy Wizard to modify that strategy. Most of the time, I recommend making a copy first and then unlocking the copy and modifying the copy. This way you can still use the original strategy and do anything you want to with the Strategy Wizard in it. And then you can use the Unlock Code version to copy and paste any text in there that you would like to. So something to keep in mind if you're planning to unlock your script. There is more information about that in the second part of this webinar, which is the Ninja Script Editor webinar, and I do encourage you to take a look with me next week with the Ninja Script Editor. Moving forward though, The compile button currently is grayed out. Once we've made some changes, this will no longer be gray. The compile button readies your script for use so you can backtest with it or actually start trading with it. Think of the compile button as sort of a save button, but not only does it save, it also gets the script ready for use. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. On the general page here, we need to set the name for our strategy. It does need to have a unique name. So I'm going to type in MA crossover. The description will be the description the user sees when they are selecting your strategy in the strategy wizard, in the strategy. For this, I'm just going to type in a simple moving average crossover strategy. Below this is calculate on bar close. When checked, it is enabled, and that also means true. What this means is it will calculate your logic one time per bar when the bar closes and the new bar opens. When I uncheck this, this will be false, and this is going to evaluate your logic once per tick. So for every received tick, it will evaluate. The difference being, do you want it to evaluate when the bar closes, or do you want it to evaluate in real time? So in real time, once per tick, uncheck, that means that it is false and it is running on a tick-by-tick basis. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine checked. When this is checked and it is true, it uses a lot less CPU because it's not evaluating for every tick. I'm going to go ahead and continue forward. This user-defined inputs here, these are also known as variables. And what they do is they just hold a value so that they can be used somewhere within the script. The important thing to note is that the user will be able to change this value. So as an example, I'm going to have a fast moving average period. I'll actually call my variable here fast period. The next column is the type. Here we have the type of variable. So we have bool, which is short for Boolean. This is a true or a false value. If I select it, you'll see I have true or false available as my options. A double is any number with a decimal. So that's negative or positive. And it's anything, so 1.1 or 1.0. A price is a good double, example of a double. Integer here. Int is short for integer. This is any whole number, again, negative or positive. So -5 or +9. Any whole number with no decimal is an integer. Below that is string. This is something used as like a message. You could have a sentence. It's really anything you want to display there. It's not going to affect the programming. It's simply just a message you would be checking. So let's select integer. The next column is the default column. This is the column that's going to have the default set for this period that I'm using, or if you have any other variable that you're using, this is just going to be the initial value that's set. For my fast period, I'm actually going to set that to 7, but the user can change that up or down as they would like. The next column is the minimum column. MIN is short for minimum. This is just the smallest value that you're willing to accept for this variable. Say you're using something where you do have negatives, you can put in a negative here like -10. So if the user types in -11, it will actually just change it to -10 since -10 is the minimum amount. We'll leave that as 1 as it's going to be for a moving average. We need at least 1 bar for that. For the description here, if they select that variable down below, the description will appear. It kind of tells them how to use this variable. I'm going to say number of bars for fast moving average. And I'm going to go ahead and start filling in my other variables here. I'm going to put in a slow period, also an integer. We'll double the speed of it. For the minimum of this, I want at least 2. And this will be number of bars for slow moving average. I'm also going to put in a stop loss and profit target on this. And I want to be able to choose how many ticks away from the entry point my stop will be placed, and how many ticks from the entry point my profit target will be placed. So for that number, I'm going to use a profit target variable. I'll set this to 20. Again, the user can set it to anything they would like, 1 or above, since I've chosen 1 as my minimum. And this will be number of ticks from entry target will be placed. And then same for stop loss. And maybe we'll put this a little closer at 10. This will be the number of ticks from entry stop will be placed. All right, so now that I have all of my variables here, I can use these variables later in my script. The user is able to change these, so do keep that in mind. If you want a number that the user is not able to change, you would need to unlock the strategy and code that in by hand. I'm going to click the next button and go ahead and continue on to the next section. Before I do, actually, I'm going to ask just a few quick questions in the room just to make sure we understand what we've had so far. The first question here, if I want my strategy to evaluate in real time, should calculate on bar close should be checked or unchecked? So hit the green 1 if you think it should be unchecked, or the red 2 if you think it should be checked. Again, I'm wanting this to run in real time, so it's going to be on a tick-by-tick basis. What would I leave it as, checked or unchecked? And while you're answering the poll here, and go ahead and answer the poll by clicking on the value in the instant poll that you see in the window there. But while you're filling out the poll, I just want to mention that if you have any questions at any time, go ahead and throw those into the room. And what I'll do is I'll try and answer those before I move on to the next section. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll here. And the answer for this is going to be unchecked. You are going to want to have this unchecked so that calculate on bar close is false. And that way it calculates on every received tick instead of when the bar closes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. I've got one more question here. What is one reason a variable might be used? To print the current position, to allow the user to set a value for a called indicator, to exit a trade with a market order, or to set the amount of ticks away from the entry a stop loss will be placed. So I have a question about what ticks are, and that would kind of be covered in a charting webinar, but I'll go ahead and open up a chart real quick. So a tick is basically whenever a trade occurs on the exchange. So, you have one person offering, one person buying, the actual trade takes place, that causes the last price to change and a tick comes out. So that's one way that a tick is used. Another way that it is used is the smallest increment possible on that particular instrument. Let me go ahead and connect. So if we go to Tools and then Instrument Manager, and we take a look at the ES, it'll tell you what the tick size is. For this, the tick size is 0.25. So a tick for the ES is going to be every increment of 0.25 on your chart here. So in between 2125.25 and 2125.50, that's one tick. 10 ticks would be between 2125 and 2825, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 27, actually. 21, 27, 20, 50. 25, actually. So a tick is just going to be the smallest increment available here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll. What is one reason that a variable might be used? The answer that I was looking for here would be to allow the user to set a value for a called indicator, or and that would be answer 2. Or number 4, to set the amount of ticks away from the entry that a stop loss will be placed. And this was multiple choice. There were multiple correct answers and multiple incorrect answers, but either 2 or 4 or both would be a correct answer here. All right, let's move on to the next section. I'm going to minimize this chart and get back to our strategy wizard. I'm going to click next. And this brings us to the conditions and actions for our strategy. The first thing you'll notice is at the top we've got 10 sets here. And each set, of course, right now is blank, but what I want to mention is that each set is evaluated independently and in order. So the the conditions for set 1 will be evaluated. Below here is the actions for set 1. Those are going to be triggered, and all of that will happen before set 2 has the conditions evaluated, the actions triggered, and then set 3, the conditions evaluated, so on and so forth. So I just want to mention that each set will have the actions, the conditions and actions both completed before the next set will be triggered. Now, in the conditions section here, all of the conditions that are added must be true for the action below to be triggered. So if I add in multiple conditions above, all of those have to be true for any of the actions below to be triggered. I'm going to open up the condition builder by clicking the add button. This add button adds a condition. The condition builder here, the way that this works is you'll take an object on the left, choose a comparison operator in the center, and then choose an object on the right. On the left here, I'm going to expand the indicator section first, and I'm going to choose the MACD indicator simply because it has multiple plots, and I just want to show how we can select those individual plots. Before I do that though, I just want to run through the parameters that are available. First of all, you can change the input series here. By default, the default input series is whatever is chosen for the strategy. That's going to be the close price by default. If I click this ellipsis button here, this gives me the option to choose a different data source for that indicator call. So with that MACD call, or moving average call, or whatever indicator chosen, we can choose to use the high prices instead of the close price, or the low or the high, median, open, typical, any of the pricing data here. The volume, the typical is a weighted, is an average. The weighted is a weighted average, with the close price being the heavier weight. You can also choose the volume if you want to do a MACD or moving average of the volume, so that's an option. You can also use another indicator. So you can have one indicator do a calculation and feed that calculation to another indicator. So maybe you're doing some calculation with the ATR and it's not very smooth, so you want to smooth it out using the SMA. You can feed the ATR to the SMA, and you can basically chain them in that way. Moving on, the fast, slow, and smooth are all user inputs that are specific to the MACD. If I choose a different indicator, it has different user-defined inputs. This one has fast limit and slow limit. So that's similar to what we did in our script, where we've made our own fast period and slow period, but these are the ones specific to the MACD. Moving on, the plot here. This is where we're able to choose what plot from the MACD we would like to use within our script. So it has 3 plots available. There's an average plot, an MACD plot, and a diff plot. And let's take a look at that on a chart real quick. So I've got a chart open. I'm going to go to indicators and select the MACD. First of all, you'll notice here that we can choose the colors for these plots. We've got the average, the diff, and the MACD, which is also known as the default plot. I'll click OK on that. So if we want to know when the green line is crossing, this would be the MACD plot. And we can tell that by looking at the color and the properties, MACD plot. The purple line is the average plot. And we can choose any of those 3 plots within as the value that we want to do our comparison with. So I could choose the average, I could choose the MACD, or I could choose the diff. I do have a quick question about programming a time frame for a strategy, that is actually part of this webinar, and I will be getting to that in just a few moments when I get down to the time section here. So yes, I will show a quick example of that. Give me one moment though to get caught up to that point. So for the diff here, we've got average. We can check to see if maybe the average is crossing above the diff by selecting the average on the left, the MACD on the right, and then selecting a different plot. And that would let you know when the average line is crossing the MACD line. Below that, we have the bars ago. This allows you to choose a different bar from that indicator call. So maybe you want to know what the MACD was 1 bar ago and see if it's greater than the current bar. That would be an option. Just type a 1 here, and that would give you 1 bar ago for the MACD. Below that is the offset type and then offset. This allows you to add something. It allows you to add a number to what is returned by that indicator. So the indicator average plot is going to return some value. I can add a certain amount of ticks to that. I can add a certain amount of price to that, or I can add a percent to that. So if I select ticks and I add 1 and my chart's on the ES, it's going to add 0.25 to whatever number is there. It'll add 1 tick to whatever answer is there. You can also use negative numbers there. Below that is plot on chart. With plot on chart set to true, when you start the strategy, it will automatically add that indicator to a chart if it's run on a chart. It's just a quick shortcut to not have to add that indicator yourself and make sure that all the parameters match. But it doesn't do anything to the actual strategy itself. It's just for visual purposes. Okay, so that's the indicator section. Below that is the miscellaneous section, and here we have things like bars since entry. If there have not been any entries, this is going to return a 0. It compares with a numeric value. So you can say if bars since entry is greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to. On the right, select a numeric value, and then you can type a value. So if the bars since entry is 6 and you want to place a new order, you can have it selected like this. Same with bars since exit. However, bars since exit will return -1 if there has not been an exit. If there has been an exit and there hasn't been any bars, it'll return a 0. So for the very first, when you very first start the strategy, if there's never been a trade, one way of finding out if there's never been a trade is by checking to see if bars since exit is equal to 0. Below that, we have cross above and cross below. They work very similar to the way that using an indicator and then cross above below in the center works. You'll have a look back period, which is the number of bars that you want to find this cross within. Let's say I wanted to find if there was a cross between 2 indicators within 5 bars. I could put a 5 there. But typically you'll want a 1 to know if it crossed on the current bar. Click the ellipsis button and you can choose 2 indicators or 2 price series or whatever 2 data series you would like. On the right, this is going to evaluate to true or false. So it'll be a true or a false. One reason you may use this instead of using the thing in the center is that maybe you want to know if there was not a cross above and you wanted to reset something. You could say if cross above equals false, and you'll know that there was no cross on that particular bar. The data series here, cross below works the same way. It's just the opposite. It's checking to see if it's crossing below. Again, look back period, two data series. With data series here, this is actually going to be the input series of the script. So if the high was selected, this will return the high. By default, this will be the close. Below that, we have falling. With falling, what it is checking for is that the current value is less than the previous value of a data series. So if I were to select the close price, it would be checking that the current value of the close on the current bar is less than the value of the close on the previous bar. Rising works the same way. It's just the opposite. It checks to see that the current value is greater than the value of the previous bar. Both falling and rising are going to evaluate to true or false. Then we have highest bar. This returns a bars ago value. So if I were to let's say I wanted to find the highest high. If I selected the high here, the period is the number of bars I want to find this high within, and it's going to return a bars ago value. So if I wanted to know if the current bar is the highest high within the last 5 bars, I would put in a 0, and that would give me a trigger when the current bar is the highest bar in the last 5 bars. Or if I want to know if the 2 bars ago was the highest bar in the last 2 bars, I would put a 2 here. Same with lowest bar. You'll give it a data series. It'll tell you what, it'll give you a bars ago value for the lowest bar in that series. For numeric value, this is going to be how a lot of things evaluate too. I'll just, we've had a few examples of that. I'll go ahead and move on. The session break lets you know if the current bar is the first bar of the session. This is going to be a true or a false. With slope, this is a calculator here, and it is going to evaluate as a numeric value. And the way this works is we give it a series such as the close price or an indicator, and we tell it on what bar we want it to start, so maybe 15 bars ago, and then where we want it to end, so maybe 10 bars ago, or maybe you wanted 1 bar ago. And this will tell you from that point to the current point what the slope is between those 2 points. Then the last thing is true. I'm going to move on to the price data section. Pretty self-explanatory. We've got the ask price in here, the ask volume, the bid volume. All of these are going to evaluate any other number. Below that, we've got our strategy information, such as the average position price. This is the entry point. So if you enter at 100 and 110, your average position price will be 105 for your position. Below that is current market position. Current market position is actually going to evaluate to flat, long, or true. So flat, long, or true. Current position size is just the quantity that you're in that position. If you're long 5, this will return a 5. And you can compare that with a numeric value. The default order quantity by default is 1, but the user is allowed to change this, and you can detect if the user has changed it here. So let's say the user has changed it to 100, and you want to know if it's greater than 50, you'd like to break it up into 2 different trades. You can do that by detecting the default order quantity greater than 50, and you can have it do something different. The realized profit and loss is the profit and loss for all closed trades. That's all trades that have an entry and an exit. This is a numeric value. The unrealized profit and loss is for all trades that have an entry but no exit, so they're still in the trade. That's the unrealized profit and loss. Again, that evaluates as a numeric value. The next section is the time section. We can do things here like create a time filter. The date value here is a hard-coded date value. The time value is a hard-coded time value, but the time series in the center, this is the time and date of the bar. Let's say that I wanted to make my strategy trade from 9 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. The way that I would do this is select time series on the left. For bars ago, I'll leave this at 0 for the current bar, but you can detect the time of a previous bar if you would like to. I'll choose greater than or equal to, since I don't mind it actually taking a trade at 9. And on the right, I'll choose time value, and I'm going to set it for 9 o'clock a.m. Click OK, and we have the first part of our time condition. So for the action to be triggered, the time must be greater than 9 a.m. Let's add in the second part of this. We'll select time series again. This time I'm just going to choose less than. I don't want it to be able to enter an order if it's equal to. So again, I'm going to choose time value on the right. I'll choose 6 o'clock p.m. this time. Click OK. And now we've got a basic time filter here. For the do the following action to take place, the time of the bar must be between 9 o'clock a.m. and 6 o'clock p.m. And you'll notice it does convert that over to a 24-hour clock. So that's time section. Moving on to the user-defined inputs. These are the values that we made earlier. If we need to use them in our script, we can do that here if we need to. With user variables, these are a little bit different from the user-defined inputs in that they're not defined by the user. These are just internal. You can use them to track information. One thing that I use those for is to use it as a trigger price. So let's say that I want to have my exit trade move up like a break-even movement. Well, one way that I could do that is by setting variable 0 to the current price plus 10 ticks or so whenever I enter my trade. And then after the close price rises to what I've saved, I know that the price has risen 10 ticks and I can trigger my break-even movement. So that's just one reason you might use a variable 0 here. All right, so I've gone through the entire condition builder. The next section is the action section. So once you've got your conditions above figured out, now you can trigger actions below. So we can do things like draw an object. We can draw an arc or a dot or a line, horizontal or vertical or between any 2 points you want. You can change the background color of that bar. You can change the color of the bar. So you can change both the background color behind it and the color of the bar itself. You can change the outline color of the bar. You can draw rectangles and squares, arrows, text. A lot of people use that to draw text or messages on the screen. Below this, we have our miscellaneous section. In here, we can do things like trigger an alert. I have an ID here, priority, some kind of message, a sound location. If you wanted to trigger a sound, I would click the ellipsis button and choose a sound here. The rearm seconds, this needs to be 1 or greater if you would like it to rearm. If this is set to 0, it does not rearm. That means it is triggered once and doesn't get triggered again if it has this same ID. So if you want it to rearm, be sure to put a 1 there or something greater. And then the back color and forward color are the colors of the alert as it will appear in the alerts window. The next is log a message. This just sends a message to the log tab. Changing the log level will change the color of the log message in the log tab. Play sound, you can play a sound without the alert. Maybe you don't want it to appear in the alerts, but you do want it to trigger a sound. So you can choose a sound location and it will use that sound location instead of triggering an alert. Then there's print to output window. I find this very useful. Printing is a good way of finding out if that particular condition was triggered. So it would let you know if that was not true, the condition was not true if it didn't print. This will also print out the time with it, so you'll actually know what bar that print came out on. This is really good for debugging, and keep it in mind as you're making your strategy and it's not behaving as you are expecting. Add a print in there and see if the condition came out true. Below that is send mail. This allows you to send an email. Put in the from address and then the to address and then a subject line and then text. A lot of people will use this to send a text message to your cell phone when a trade happens. So you could put in for the to address, if you've got a cell phone, you can use the SMS to email address. If you're using Verizon, it's at vtext.com, but every phone carrier has their own email to SMS address, and you can use that to send yourself an email. Heads up, you do have to have the SMTP server settings set up under Tools, Options, and then the Miscellaneous. So Tools, Options, Miscellaneous. If you have the mail server set up here, it can send you emails or text messages. The last thing here is set a user-defined variable. Earlier I was mentioning that you can track the price if you want to use it as a trigger, and you would do that here by setting the variable. I would set variable 0 to maybe the close price plus 10 ticks, so I would choose close price. Offset I'd leave on ticks, add 10 to that, click OK, and now I've got whatever the current price is plus 10 ticks saved to this variable. In another set, I can check to see if the close price has reached that variable, and I know that the price has risen 10 ticks. And then there's order management. So this is where all of the trade stuff happens. You can enter a long position. This is a market order, a long limit order, a buy stop limit order, a buy stop market order. And then for entering short, these are all sell orders. So sell market order, a sell limit order, sell stop limit order, and sell stop market order. Then we can also exit. So we can either exit right away with a sell market order. You can also set like a profit target if you wanted to. So this would be an exit long position by a limit order. This would be like the way that a profit target would be used. If the price comes up and hits it, you'll get out. The exit long position by stop limit order, this would be like a stop loss if you wanted to control your stop loss and where it is. One thing you'll notice is, let me go ahead and finish these off. So there's exit long position by stop order. This is a sell stop market order. For exiting short, you buy. This is a sell stop market order. For exiting short, you buy. So this would be a buy market order, a buy limit order, buy stop limit order, and buy stop market order. One thing you'll notice is that the signal name here, if you put in a signal name, that signal name allows you to tie an exit to that entry. So let's say that you put in 2 orders and you wanted to make sure that your exit only applies to one of those orders. That's done by the signal name. So for the entry signal, I would put in like entry 1. And then if I wanted the exit to exit that specific entry, in the from entry signal, I would put entry 1. And then for the signal name of the exit, this is really just to identify it. It really doesn't do anything else. I would put my exit 1 there. This exit will only affect this entry. So if we have multiples there, it's not going to affect anyone but this one. I do have a question in the room. It says, where do we set the quantity? The quantity can be set in the quantity field here. By default, it's the default quantity. That means that you're going to use the quantity that the user has defined, and by default that is 1, but the user can change it. If you change that to like a 5 that's hard-coded in the quantity, then the user is no longer able to change the quantity used for the strategy. It's locked at that point to whatever you set. So if you want the user to be able to set the quantity, then you would use default quantity as the quantity. Okay, so I have gotten through the conditions and actions. I am going to build the MA crossover real quick. And to do that, I'm going to click the Add button. And I'm going to select the SMA. For input series, I'll leave that at default. For the period, I'm going to choose my fast period. I'm going to check to see if this is crossing above the SMA with the slow period. So on the right, I'm going to choose slow period, SMA, and then period, slow period. For bars to go, I'll leave that at 0 for both. For the offset, I'll leave that off on both. But I do want to know when these are crossing on the chart, so I'm going to say plot on chart true, and that way we can see when it crosses. And then for the ordering, I'm going to enter a long position. I'm not going to use a signal name though, so that way my profit and target and stop loss, I only have to do that once and it'll apply to both trades. So I'm going to enter long here. A little shortcut I'm going to take to get my set 2 set up for the opposite. I'm going to do a right click and select copy. And in set 2, I'm going to right click and select paste. Now it's the same condition, so I'm going to click the ellipsis button. And to make it the opposite, just change my operator from cross above to cross below. So now set 2 is checking for a cross below. Set 1 is checking for a cross above. For my action for set 2, I'm going to enter a short position. Click OK. One thing you'll notice I did not do is that if you're in a long position, I did not exit that long position before entering a short position. And the reason for this is that when you're using the strategy wizard, you're in the managed approach. And that simply means that NinjaTrader is going to handle that for you. If you call enter short and you're long, NinjaTrader is going to send out an order to exit your long position, send out another order to enter into the short position. If I add exit long and then enter short, well, it doesn't actually have a chance to update the position in time. It's going to send out both of those, and I'm going to end up with an exit trade that gets me out of the trade. The enter short doesn't see that my position is updated yet. It sends out another order to exit the trade, and then a third order to enter into the new position. And one of two things will happen. Either A, an overfill will happen, and it's very common for overfills to happen because of this, or B, it's going to cause me to end up double in the opposite direction. So if I was long 1, I'll end up short 2. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not calling an exit before I call an entry. It'll automatically exit my trade. If I wanted to exit and not enter a new position, it would be fine to use exit short here, or exit long, I mean. So I've got my basics crossover set. I'm going to go to the last page here for the stop losses and profit targets. Click the add button. So for profit target, again, you can use a from entry signal if you want it to be specific to a entry. But for the profit target, we can set this to a percent, a price. Now this is a hard-coded price, so if you type in 2,000, the profit target actually gets put at the price 2,000. Or ticks. For mine, I'm going to use ticks, and I'm going to use the profit target. And you remember when I set this before, I set it to 20, so by default, this is going to use 20, and that's where it's going to set my profit target. I'll click OK. I'll click the Add button again just to open the window back up. The profit target total position in cash, this is actually the amount of profit that you've made. So if you want to get out after you've made $100 in currency, type 100 there. That'll get you out after $100 for your entire position, not just for that one order. It's for your entire position. Below that is stop loss. Works about the same as the profit target, of course, in the opposite direction. I'll put ticks here and choose my stop loss variable. Below this is simulated. A simulated stop loss is one that is not submitted to the broker right away. And one reason that you may use this is if you want to use a negative value for the stop loss. So if you wanted to use a negative value for, say, like a limit or something like that, if it was simulated, that would be allowed. But it would not be a real order that you can send to the broker. So it sits on your local computer until it's touched. Once it's touched, then it is submitted to the broker. That's only when this is set to true. When set to false, it is submitted immediately and rests on the broker's side until it is touched. And the simulated question in the room, does the simulated increase latency? Nothing's going to increase latency on your computer except your internet. If you've got a storm going on, maybe that can increase your latency, but no actions NinjaTrader does is likely going to increase the latency. The latency is basically the amount of time it takes for your computer to send out a message to the server and for that message to be replied to. That would be latency there. I think what your question is does it take longer for the simulated to be sent? And the answer to that is yes. So since it has to be touched on your local computer and then submitted, right, then you have to wait for that submission time. If you use a regular stop loss with the simulated set to false, that is submitted when your entry order is filled. So it's in there working ahead of time, already on the broker's servers. The moment it's touched, it fills immediately. It doesn't have to come back to your computer and say, hey, the price is here. Do you want me to fill? And then the order gets submitted. So in that answer, yes, it is at the moment that the price hits, the faster way would be to have it set to false, to have simulated set to false. Simply because if simulated is set to true, then it has to be submitted at the time that the price hits it. Moving on, stop loss total position in cash. That's just like the total profit target. This is just looking for a total amount of loss. Put in $100 of loss in there. It'll get you out after $100. trailing stop, this is similar to the stop loss in that it's going to be placed at a certain amount of ticks away or percent away or a certain price. The way that it is different is that as the price moves toward the profit, it will move with it on a tick by tick basis. So you enter in at 100, the trailing stop goes in at 90. When you get to 101, the trailing stop goes up to 91. If the price comes down though, the trailing stop doesn't move. So it just trails behind, and then if it comes back on you, it stays put and gets you out of the trade. So let's choose stop loss here. Click OK. We now have a complete strategy. And I am going to click the compile button to get this script ready for use. You can also click next and then finish, and that will also compile. Does the same thing as the compile button. The difference is it's kind of like clicking OK and then apply. Apply does the same thing as OK. It's just that apply keeps the window open and clicking OK closes the window. So clicking compile does compile the script. Clicking finish compiles the script and then closes the window. I want to ask a few questions, make sure that we understand everything. And of course, let me know if I'm going too fast or if I haven't covered anything you have questions about. So my next question is what is needed to have an exit order, exit a specific entry order? So I have let's say that I have 2 entries and 2 exits. What do I need to distinguish these so that my exit order is only applied to that one specific entry? And there's only going to be one correct answer for this. So 1, you could use the indicator as the price for the exit order. 2, the exit signal name must match the entry signal name. The entry's signal name must match the exit order's from entry signal. Or the exit order must be in the same condition set as the entry order. So earlier when I was talking about the signal name and the from entry signal, how do I need to arrange these so that my exit order only exits a specific entry order? And that would be the same for the set profit target and set stop loss as well. If I want to have my stop loss and profit target exit a specific entry, so I'm using multiple ones and maybe I want to scale in and then scale out, how do I have my profit target match my entry so that it only exits that one entry? It looks like most of the answers are in. I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll, but I think I need to review this one. So if you look here in the profit target, you'll notice that the only thing available is the from entry signal. And what that means is that the from entry signal of the exit order must match the signal name of the entry order. So again, the entry order, the signal name must match the exit order's from entry signal. So the correct answer for this would be number 3. The entry signal's name must match the exit order's from entry signal. And I'll show you what that looks like one more time. We've got our entry order here. This is my entry long. Maybe I'll call it entry or long entry 1. And again, this is in the signal name. And then I'll add in my exit long. Actually, I'll use my profit target here. So I've got long entry 1. That's my signal name. And then for my exit here, if I want this profit target to only be applied to that one order, I'll type this into the from entry signal. I'll call it long entry 1. Now this profit target only applies to this one enter long. It will not be applied to the enter short. I'm going to go ahead and remove those. Okay, the next question is about the time filter. What tools would I use to trigger an order once at 9:05 every day on a 5-minute chart? Would I use the time section with time series and have that equal the time? Would I go into the miscellaneous section? And let me actually pull this up real quick. Okay, so that was time and then time series, and have that being compared with time and then time value. Or would I do miscellaneous and then session break equals, and then on the right, true? Or could I choose the open, high, low, close indicator? Actually, it would be current day open, high, low, close indicator. And then under miscellaneous, use a numeric value of 0. Or would I only run this script in the morning? And it looks like most of the answers have come in for this. I'll go ahead and stop the poll. And the answer to this would be number 1, using time and time series and time value. Very good. I have one more question, but I don't think that I addressed it extremely well here. When I was in the miscellaneous section, in the indicator section, I had the option here for plot on chart. And one thing that I needed to mention is that when plot on chart is set to true and your strategy is added to a chart, it will add indicators to that chart automatically. However, if you have added your strategy to the strategies tab of the control center, that will not add those indicators to any open charts. So for this plot on chart to work, you do have to add your strategy to a chart. And that actually was my last question here. Go ahead and answer this. It says if an indicator in a condition has plot on chart set to true, and the strategy is added directly to the strategies tab of the control center, will any indicators appear on the chart? The answer to that is no. All right. Last thing here, I just want to show you how we can enable this strategy that we've added. And we can do this from a chart, or we can do it from the strategies tab of the control center. I actually should have a chart open already. Let me bring that up. All right, so here's my chart. If I right click and go to strategies, you can see that there's an MA crossover in the list. I can click the new button. On the right here, I need to set enabled to true. And of course, you can change any of the parameters that you need to. And I'll click OK. If enabled is set to true, we'll see all of our historical trades here. I'm going to go ahead and close this chart and go to the strategies tab of the control center. You'll notice that there's 2 instances of it here. It's because I've added it to the chart. Let me go ahead and remove those. I'm going to right click and add a new strategy directly to the strategies tab. First, you'll choose the strategy in the drop down, change any parameters you need. In the instrument, choose the instrument you want to trade on. Change anything else that you need to, and then click OK. And then to enable, check the box in the enabled, and then click OK. And now this is enabled. The yellow here means that it is waiting to make the first live trade. If it's green, that means that it is ready to make the first live trade, or already has made live trades. If it is white, it is not enabled. Okay, before I go, I just want to thank you for joining us today. And I want to invite you the same time next week. We're going to get a little bit deeper into C# code. We're going to unlock the strategy. We're going to use the NinjaScript editor, and we're going to learn about the different aspects of the strategy in the actual C# code. Again, we are, over the next few weeks, launching new education events. We are not finished with these. We could use your help with feedback for improvements. And at the end of this event, if you wouldn't mind taking a quick survey, that would really help us to know how we're doing with these new webinars. Thanks for your time. We look forward to your feedback. Happy trading from everyone here at NinjaTrader.